Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Diablo 4. Today we jump back into Rogue, which is my new alt who's already level 81. If you haven't tried the new Nightmare Dungeon XP buffs, you need to, it's so much better. But that aside, Rogue. Today I've got this extremely high burst version of this penetrating shot build, destroying absolutely everything right after the initial setup, leaning into a more speed clear focus concept. On that note, if you want to improve your Diablo experience with an easy way to track and follow builds, Mobalytics, today's sponsor, is a fantastic resource for exactly that. An application I've been using on and off for years for a variety of games, and it's now here in Diablo 4. It's a very easy way to follow meta builds and maximize your gameplay. Mobalytics is a completely free companion app designed to make your experience smoother in your game of choice as a straightforward way to check builds, find guides, consider tier lists and more. Best of all, for Diablo 4 it can be easily accessed mid-game in just a moment through the in-game overlay. You just press tab plus Q and that will push the overlay out on the left, letting you find a suitable build or guide to follow along while still in-game and moving and playing. It's a very efficient way to say when leveling, pull out the overlay and just check your guide and what to level next without really any interruption. Or check the main app itself to check extra details where there's space for the creators to explain how the build works, advise you on the gameplay loop, and even link to full video guides should you need them. All of the builds can be filtered by class and are constantly updated according to current meta. And hey, you can find our written builds here in the app too. We've been working with Mobalytics to get all our video guides converted to easy to refer to Mobalytic versions, and it's really cool to just see this in the app or the overlay for us, and should be really helpful to you guys. So give the app a try. It's completely free to download. Just follow the link in the description of the video so they know we sent you. A big thank you again to Mobalytics for sponsoring the channel, but now let's get back to the video. Of all the classes, I felt Rogue has been the most balanced within itself. There are certainly issues, but all of the cores are incredible and there's builds centered around them. While there might be better options than others, compared to other classes, our builds are pretty competitive. So what was standout buffed in 1.0.3? Well, the biggest buffs happened to one of the builds contending for best Rogue build, and that's penetrating shot. It was buffed in a very small way. There's the basic you could consider forceful arrow, which had a minor damage buff, but more importantly the umbrous aspect, which grants free dark shadows on marksman skill crits. It's basically a % chance, and that was improved. And while I've been considering what build to try next, penetrating shot just kept coming up as a fantastic speed clear build, and with a few ways to set up the build itself. So with those details of improvement, I've made my own version of that setup and then blast build, and the damage is very impressive. The whole idea is to set up and then pop, meaning you generate your combo points, your expectant aspect, you dash through to enhance crit damage, and then proc your tricks of the trade, imbuing with shadow, death trapping to pull them together, and devastating with penetrative shots that shoot out in that cross shape, spreading all that explosive shadow and popping absolutely everything for really satisfying burst damage. We pop anything and everything with the right setup, and casually you'll be landing like 2 million plus damage in individual hits, let alone obviously the massive amount of hits you're landing in one burst moment. But it's not like you need to go that hard every time. Packs often just need like a basic attack and then a penetrative shot. If it's more of a juicy pack, then we can death trap or full commit with imbue and everything else. But it feels good. It's like you're organizing the fight quickly, then popping it all in one hit. Your positioning matters because of penetrating shot and the way it works with aiming it, and it rewards good movement gameplay. With this version of the build, I'm nice and mobile. I'm not giving up dash, so I can keep moving through levels quickly if I'm speed clearing. And with those buffs to the umbrous aspect, we have Dark Shroud up pretty constantly, entirely for free. It's not even taking up an ability slot. Now, it's not all rainbows. I would say that buff to forceful arrow feels a bit too little. The basic really isn't used for damage, though it is good in this build. It's more about the benefits of, say, puncture and how it spreads vulnerability and slows, providing a ton of bonus energy as well. The other basics need more relevant perks rather than like raw damage increases to compete. But in any case, this build is feeling very good. I'm enjoying this totally different playstyle to Twisting Blades. So let me show you how I've set it up. We'll begin with the skill tree, and I'll just scroll down so you can see all of the points individually if you want to pause at any point so you can refer to that. But from the top, we pick up, of course, Puncture, the best rogue basic. We enhance it to improve the energy as it deals damage to crowd control enemies, which it crowd controls itself with the slow, and then Fundamental Puncture, of course, to spread the vulnerability. We can absolutely spam these out, which is great for combo point generation and building up the expectant aspect. Then, as we come down to the core ability, we're 5 out of 5 on penetrating shot. Of course, we want this to deal as much damage as possible, we enhance it, improving its damage per penetration, and then advancing penetrating shot, because it'll slow all enemies hit and even knock down elites, leading to further burst. You need to be full energy when you do that, but that is often how we set up anyway. Then we have Sturdy for the 12% close damage reduction, which is quite nice. And that brings us down to the more agility focused stuff. 1 point into Shadow Step to get that going. We enhance it, of course. And we take Discipline Shadow Step in our case, because we only have 1 stack of it to use, as we are using the unique boots. This reduces the cooldown of it when you change Shadow Step targets, which really helps. And then we have Dash for the mobility, but very importantly, the enhanced Dash, meaning targets we hit with Dash take 15% times increased critical strike damage for 5 seconds, so it's majorly improving our damage. Also, as always, 3 out of 3 weapon mastery. We're using crossbow, so 15% times increased critical strike damage is very nice indeed. On the next level though, we have Dark Shroud. We need to put points into this for it to actually work, even though we're getting it for free through one of our aspects. So even though it's not in our bars, this is triggering, and we put 5 out of 5 into that and even work in some item contribution. The higher the level, the more damage reduction, which is very nice. We enhance it, so sometimes it's not consumed, and then go Subverting Dark Shroud for the movement speed increase. The other points here go into Exploit, massively increasing our damage to healthy and injured enemies, helping us burst enemies who are hurt or full health. And then Malice, which is going to greatly improve our damage to vulnerable enemies, and we're getting more levels from our amulet, I believe. Onto our next tree though, we are picking up Shadow Imbuement with just 1 level and getting the rest of the levels from items. The more you level it, the more damage it does, which is very nice, but we are absolutely desperate for skill points as we get to the bottom of this tree, and by putting 1 point into it, we're able to pick up Shadow Crash, which causes stuns sometimes with that shadow damage, but much more importantly, consuming shadows. We want as much energy as possible and to be at 100% while we deal the damage, so consuming shadows really helps with that, massively generating loads of energy. We're also using the Penitent Greaves unique, so Frigid Finesse is a nice pickup here. At 3 levels, it's 15% times increased damage to shield enemies, which we constantly do as we go near enemies as we fight. But if you don't have those unique boots, I put those 3 points probably into Shadow Imbuement. Down on the ultimate tree, we pick up the Death Trap and pick up the standard enhancements to improve it and also help it reduce its own cooldown. For passives here, we pick up the 3 out of 3 Innovation, giving us Lucky Hit to generate energy, which obviously is vital. We pick up all levels of Aftermath, giving us a load of energy whenever we use the ultimate itself. Then we have 1 level in Adrenaline Rush, helping further with energy regen as we move, but it's just to get to haste, giving us either movement speed or attack speed depending on how much energy we have. Lastly, the obvious pick for the key passive is Precision, as we are using marksman abilities. While it should be pretty obvious we're going combo points, just as a highlight, our spec is indeed combo points. Now it's time for the Paragon. As I am only level 81 compared to 100, I've done my best to get as far as I can with this Paragon board, and I will explain things as I go. We go from the bottom of the starting board to the right to pick up Prime, and then around to the left to pick up the Socket, where we put in Ranger. Ranger reduces the damage we take by 10% while wielding a ranged weapon, so it's a no-brainer for us. But also, it massively improves marksman skill damage per level of dexterity you take. We can get a ton of dexterity in the starting board. Once I get this to level 15, we can get even more. We'll pick up Lawless on the right and then leave via Skillful up to the left, and then we go to our next board, which is Exploit Weakness. This increases how much damage we deal to a vulnerable target. First, we work our way up the middle of the board to the left up to the glyph itself, where we put in Combat, which, from my understanding so far, every rogue wants combat. Critical strike damage improvements to your core skill is insane, and then skills that critically strike restore 12% of their energy cost. I imagine I'm going to be using this in every rogue build. It requires 25 intelligence to get going, which I would recommend you do, but definitely come back like I have to put more points and get more intelligence later on. We're also picking up Artifice for the extra vulnerable damage. It also has nice magic nodes for that as well. And while we do pick up Dosage at the bottom, it's more for the intelligence nodes around it. Once we've done that, we'll leave the glyph and head to the right and up to Exploit for more vulnerable damage, and the awesome magic nodes around that for more vulnerable damage, coming up and to the left and down and to the left to pick up Exploit Weakness. Then we'll go up and get Unassailable, reducing damage taken from vulnerable targets, which is nice, and then we'll leave the board by heading right. At our next board, we're picking up Cunning Stratagem, which just gives us a nice quick route to the next board. While picking up a Glyph Socket, it provides an awesome rare node in Finisher and an awesome amount of strength nodes around it because we are putting Exploit in here. We'll enter the board and head straight up and go straight to the Glyph, where we put in Exploit. This improves our vulnerable damage per strength that we pick up, and it also causes enemies damaged by us to become vulnerable once every 20 seconds for 3 seconds, which is awesome. Here we're going to pick up Lawless for the defensive perk perks and the magic nodes around that, activating the secondary effect by picking up enough strength, and also picking up the finisher node, of course, for the massive improvement to core skill damage. The magic nodes around that have that perk as well, so we definitely want that. We leave to the right and come down slightly just to pick up dominant, again more core skill damage. So as you can see, this is a really efficient board for just getting what we want and then leaving when we don't care about the legendary node at all. On the fourth board then, as we work our way up, we're picking up the Tricks of the Trade board. This massively increases the damage of your cutthroat or marksman skills. This means you can use dash and shadow step and it'll enhance your next marksman skill, aka penetrating shot, by 25% times increased damage, which is massive. And obviously we get another buff when we dash through targets anyway, so this is just super good for that. We enter the board like so, working our way up to the glyph where we're putting in Chip. Chip massively improves our physical damage every time we get more dexterity. On this board, you're able to get 40 dexterity without actually being level 15 on Chip, which is another nice bonus. The secondary effect is nice though. Physical damage increases the damage an enemy takes from you by 1% times, up to 10% times, and for 15 seconds. That's a long time. So a nice modifier right there. We activate that by getting enough dex, and then we head up through focused on our way to the right, down and left to pick up Tricks of the Trade. It's at this point where I would go back and start leveling other glyphs, starting with combat as the highest priority, which is where I'm getting more intelligence to improve the crit strike damage with core skills. I'll also go back to Ranger and get more dex down here for more perks there, and again with the exploit glyph and the chip glyph with a lot of the remaining points I have. But that now brings us to the gear section. I am running two uniques in this version of the build, Penitent Greaves for the increased damage to shield enemies, which is a nice perk. Quite hard to get a damage increasing aspect on boots otherwise, but of course we would normally run Ravager's aspect, which gives you an extra charge of Shadow Step, which is certainly nice otherwise. The other unique is Condemnation, which is why we're using combo points. This unique's aspect means our core skills can deal up to 40% times increased damage when spending 3 combo points. I've got quite a poor roll here, but what can you do? What's pretty cool about this is your basic skills using this weapon have a 30% chance to generate 3 combo points. So a 30% chance every time you use Puncture to just get 3 combo points instantly is certainly efficient. In any case, with the uniques explained, let's start with the two-hand weapon where we're using Edge Masters. We want the strongest aspect here, and Edge Masters is the way to do it. 40% times increased skill damage based on the primary resource. So when you're full energy, which is how we use our build, our Paragon points, our skill points, to always have high energy, this is why it majorly increases your damage. As explained, we're using Condemnation, but the other weapon is of course the Expectant aspect. I would recommend you use a sword for the critical strike damage. This aspect though means attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill cast by 10% times, and it stacks up to 30% times. So basically you attack 3 times with Puncture, generating combo points, and also this aspect, raising your damage before you smash them with a penetrating shot. Those are the weapons though. Let's look at the helmet. The Umbrous aspect, the one that's been buffed, now can get up to a 60% chance to grant a free Dark Shroud Shadow when you get a critical strike lucky hit with marksman skills, which through what we've chosen to level reduces the damage we take massively and gives us some nice movement speed. On the chest we have Might. We're using a lot of basic attacks with Puncture, so it means permanent 20% damage reduction. That's awesome. On the gloves, we're improving the basic skill attack speed using the Rapid aspect. This allows us to generate combo points and the buffs very quickly and actually turns Puncture into quite the effective DPS machine if you need it. On the legs we have Disobedience, the best defensive aspect in the game, and then we have the Penitent Greaves boots. For the amulet, we have the second most important aspect here, Trick Shot. This is what's causing the penetrating shot to split off to either side, dealing up to 38% of the base damage of the penetrating shot. So the harder your penetrating shot, the harder the split offs will hit, and of course that matters when we're using Shadow Imbuement to blow them all up. We have that on the amulet because we want that to be as strong as possible, but with Edge Masters being more important, that's taking up the 2-hand slot. For the rings, first up, Accelerating. Critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed, further helping us generate combo points, energy, and so on. And lastly, the Ring of Umbral, which gives us energy when we crowd control enemies. I also want to reference with the fact we're using the Umbrous aspect that I did try Enshrouding aspect. This means your Dark Shroud actually has better damage reduction, which sounds really nice. In testing, I found that it just wasn't as effective as the Might aspect, which is a raw 20% damage reduction that is constant in my gameplay. But now let's talk about the affixes on my gear. On my helmet, we're looking for ranks of Shadow Imbuement to improve that. On the gloves, you'll be looking for ranks of Penetrating Shot. And on the legs, any levels of Dark Shroud will be great because it'll further improve the damage reduction of that ability. vulnerability. For your damage increases, you're going to be looking for crit chance and crit damage, as well as the all-important vulnerability damage. Further, we can also get extra critical strike damage with imbued skills as another amazing affix, but after that, other modifiers like close damage are good options. For utility, you're going to be looking for resource generation to further help with your energy, and any CDR is always good, be that CDR or imbuement CDR in general. Damage reduction options are the classic ones: max HP increases, raw armor, straight damage reduction, and anything like damage reduction for close and far enemies. Those are all great. Lastly, as you can see throughout all of this footage, I'm using the rubies for maximum health in my armor. In our weapons, we've got critical strike damage improvements to vulnerable enemies and skulls for armor in the jewelry. Now, with all that explained, let's just go over the gameplay. There are generally two ways to approach combat: going all in or going light. If we're going to go all in, we want to use all of what we have for burst. To begin with, you'll be setting up your combo points, your buffs, applying vulnerable, applying CC and slows by spamming puncture at the target. Our attack speed is amazing with this build, so puncture just flies out. You want to attack at least 3 times though to guarantee 3 combo points and the 30% damage increase from the expectant aspect. But the more you go, the more you build up the key passive. When you're ready to go, you can death trap and dash through the group to apply the crit damage increase. As we do that, we'll shadow imbue for the penetrating shot and smash them with said penetrating shot. If anything's alive, you can go ahead and puncture at least 3 times and then send in the second and final imbued penetrating shot. Obviously, that is all in, using everything, maxing your damage, which feels amazing on those big elite pack groups. But a lot of the time, you'll be going a lot lighter than that. It really depends on the relevance of the pack, how strong they are. Truly, you can just send a bunch of punctures in to buff up, dash through the targets, and send a penetrating shot or 2, and most things are just going to die anyway. Getting comfortable with how hard you need to go based on the pack will be up to you, but a lot of the fun and the gameplay is down to penetrating shot and the positioning of it. The better you move so the shot lines up to hit more targets, of course, the better it's going to be. But there you have it. That is my penetrating shot build. I think this feels amazing. I'm really enjoying this playstyle. It's very unique. Crushing packs of mobs with fast setup and fast movement, with careful positioning so you're hitting as many targets as possible with a penetrating shot. It's satisfying. It does have a weakness though in terms of long single target fights, as it's certainly more bursty than high DPS as a build. But you know, a lot of boss fights, they'll just die anyway pretty quickly to the burst. It's a shame though about the kind of lacking buffs to Rogue overall in the patch. I think we need more than just damage bumps. I think we need a bit more utility and extra effects on other abilities to make them worth using. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. I hope this was useful or interesting to you. For now, thank you for watching. I've been Hollow, you've been you. We'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.